The regular meeting of the Minneapolis Police Conduct Oversight Commission will now begin.
Good evening. My name is Jordan Sparks. I'm the Vice Chair of the Police Conduct Oversight Commission, and I am going to call this meeting for February 8th, 2022 to order. As we begin, I will note for the record that this meeting has remote participation by members of the Commission and city staff as authorized under Minnesota statutes, section 13D.021, due to the declared local public health emergency. The city will be recording and posting this meeting on the city's website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. This meeting is public and subject to the Minnesota Open Meeting Law. At this time, I will ask the clerk to please call the roll so we can verify quorum for the meeting.
Commissioner Crockett is absent. Commissioner McGuire.
Present.
Commissioner Pino.
Present.
Commissioner Sylvester.
Here.
Vice Chair Sparks.
Present.
There are 4 members present.
Great, thank you. Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. Next, we will proceed to our agenda. A copy of the agenda has been posted for public access to the city's Legislative Information Management System, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov, and the meetings of the last minute. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda and acceptance of the minutes from January 11th, 2022?
So moved.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner McGuire.
Aye.
Commissioner Pino.
Aye.
Commissioner Sylvester.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sparks.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes.
All right. The motion carries and the agenda is adopted, and minutes for the January 11th, 2022 meeting are accepted. All right, let's move into unfinished business. First item of unfinished business is an update on the case summary process that it looks like we adopted this at our October 2021 meeting, and the item was postponed from January 11th due to lack of time. So I would like to call on civil rights staff to provide an update on the new case summary process.
Once we see it picking this up, we can hang up the phone.
Yes, hi, good evening. Carolina Amini here. I would be happy to provide you an update. OPCR staff has we did a random selection of 60 cases within the past year. And what we are planning on doing is to provide, as we go through the case summaries, to post them all online where they are available to the public. There are some already online, and there will be more coming as soon as we are able to write them. And I do plan on speaking about one today, and I can go in depth. For reference, it will be case summary number OPCR-21-02. It should be available online on our website or through LIMS. I'm not entirely sure exactly where it is. If Andrew's on the line, if he could give more specifics as to where to find it, but it is public and online as of a few weeks ago.
Great, thanks. Don't know if now is the best time or not to go through it. Maybe I'll open it up to our commission members if they have anything they'd like to say or if they'd like to discuss it. Commissioner Pino.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I appreciate you coming in and telling us that it is online, and I agree. If someone can provide us with that link, I know it's not on our agenda. I mean, the item is on our agenda, but there is no link connected to our agenda on LIMS. It would be great to take a look at it, so that way
Absolutely.
we're able to follow along with you when talking about this. And I don't believe I see Mr. Hawkins on the line.
I can see if I can provide the link to you in the chat in a minute.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yes. I do see Chris Ban and Nick Barkley on the line. Nick and Chris, if you're able to provide that link while I'm talking about the case, that could work as well. If it is all right with everyone, I could proceed with just describing this case, and we should be able to get that link out to you in a few minutes.
Sure. I think that sounds okay.
Okay. So again, this is the case summary number OPCR-21-02. So this thank you, Lisa, for that update. So the summary of the complaint came in where it was alleged that officers deactivated the squad's lights and sirens prior to arriving to an unrelated call to assist another agency a few blocks away. So this is what we would call like a squad accident incident. The squad entered an intersection against a posted stop sign and did not stop for that stop sign. At the same time, a civilian vehicle entered the intersection and stopped, and the squad struck the civilian vehicle along the passenger side of their car. Both officers in the squad were transported to the hospital, and the lone occupant in the civilian SUV was transported to another hospital. All parties sustained non-life-threatening injuries, and both vehicles involved sustained significant damage. And then it was also alleged that both officers were not wearing their seatbelts at the time of the incident. So as I go through this case summary, I thought it was also very important to kind of walk through how the intake investigation is done for every case or every complaint that comes through our office. So we receive this complaint through the OPCR portal, and is then uploaded in our database and then placed into what we call an intake queue. We have 2 intake investigators with OPCR now. What they would do is that they will kind of alternate and figure out which cases to investigate. Sometimes they go by one investigator picks the oldest cases, one investigator picks the newest ones, and then they kind of meet in the middle, or they do, one does even cases, one does odd cases. It kind of alternates on their work schedule and what fits best for them. So an investigator then opens the case, reviews the complaint, and tries to pull in as much information as possible. In this case, there was a VisiNet report, which is also called a CAD call, so a computer-aided dispatch note. It's basically the communication between 911 dispatch and officers. So those are the types of comments and information that officers can review before coming to a call and put in notes and update dispatch and other officers as to the status of the call and what might be happening. So in this case, the problem or the type of how the case was classified as the officers were responding to the scene was what they would call a jumper call. So it was assisting another agency, which was fire, into a potential situation where it was an individual that was in danger of falling from a high place within a building. So as they're responding to that call, the squad A or the squad accident occurred. That incident was then changed to a property damage accident. And it had alerted MPD and dispatch that there was an accident involving a squad that had taken place while en route to assisting fire and EMS. So in that process, when they pulled in that VisiNet report, it is reviewed and added to the case. They also look for a police report, which in this case is called PIMS, which is Police Information Management System. We have access to that. We pull that PIMS report. We get all that information. It is drawn into our database. So in this instance, there is information and supplements about the Squad A incident. It gives information about what officers did at the time, direct involvement or responding officers, what they had done to assist the 3 injured parties, which were the 2 officers and the civilian. And there's also comments about any injuries, what was done, how the incident took place, and what was done afterwards. They also analyze that and add that to every single case that we get. So for this case specifically, we also got data consistent with accident reviews. So there's a Minnesota State Accident Report. There are Minnesota CIC case details, Bosch CDR data, which is basically a computer printout of what happened to the squad moments before an accident and during an accident. So for example, were the brakes applied? How fast were they going? Where exactly were they in a geo map? Just standard crash data that you would expect in regards to a squad. So all of that was taken in during intake. The intake investigator analyzes all of that, sees what relevant policy violations may or may not have occurred, and then it is added to what we call a 3401, which is just a document that is then aided, what they use to aid during their presentations to the joint supervisors. Another aspect is the body-worn camera. We have access to that as well. We are able to pull all the body-worn camera that is associated to each individual case, review it, see if there are any policy violations that could come from viewing that body-worn camera. Again, if there were questions with activations that could be addressed, or anything that we can see from their viewpoint that could aid in the investigation. So specifically to this case, in the body-worn camera of Officer 1, which is the driver of the squad, we saw that his activation was roughly 20 minutes long, and it captures the moment of impact of the civilian vehicle. So officers were located a few blocks away at the time that they were dispatched. Officer 1 buckled their seatbelt, began driving to the dispatch location with emergency lights and sirens on. While en route to the dispatch location, they had turned on the audio navigation system that is within the squad, so GPS, to help them get to that location faster. It was providing them directions. They had passed several traffic light control intersections. They then realized that the navigation system failed to provide the adequate directions. They then decided to modify their direction of travel and then continue driving to the dispatch location. At some point, the squad sirens were deactivated. The Officer 1 unfastened their seatbelt, and in Officer 1's BWC, one can see the stop sign pass on the right side of their BWC. Then you can hear yelling, and then right before the squad collided with the civilian vehicle. So you're able to see that through their body-worn camera. There is BWC footage for Officer 2 as well. It provides relatively the same information. The biggest difference for Officer 2's body-worn camera, you could see with better clarity at what point Officer 1's decision to turn off the lights and sirens, and you can see more of Officer 1's driving conduct just by the way that he was that they were sitting in the passenger side of the squad. They also noticed that the navigation system took them off course. You can hear their decision to divert and pick a different direction to the incident. And again, you hear the yelling and that subsequent collision with the civilian car. Both officers remained on the scene until they deactivated their BWC. And then OPCR had archived that BWC for future use if needed. So again, we reviewed that body-worn camera. We were able to see all of those. We were able to hear their verbal decisions. We were able to see what actions were taken. We were able to see through different angles the point of contact and the collision of the vehicles. The other thing that we have access to is a mobile video recorder, which is MVR. It's basically a camera that is installed with squad, so you could see the front view of the squad. You can also see the back seat of the squad. Also with NVR, there is a small window to the left that provides just some basic information when the brakes were applied, how fast they may or may not have been going, and GPS coordinates. So within that MVR activation, specific to this case, we were able to see again from another viewpoint the contact between the squad and the civilian vehicle. We were also able to confirm that there was activation of lights and sirens, and there was also that deactivation of lights and sirens. And we were able to see through the MVR footage shows that the squad was failing to stop for the posted stop sign and entered that intersection. And then the squad brakes were activated prior to colliding with that civilian vehicle. So again, given all of that information, giving all of the documents and the videos, all of that is analyzed by intake investigation. They then draft a document that is used to aid joint supervisors on deciding on how to route a case. So we generally have intake meetings once a week where the joint supervisors, being the director of the Office of Police Conduct Review and the commander of internal affairs, along with the investigators, meet and decide on how a case should be routed. We currently do not have a director of OPCR, so I am participating as the investigations manager in deciding on how those cases should be routed. So there are several options. There's an administrative investigation option, a preliminary investigation. Cases could be dismissed for various reasons. It could be routed for coaching. It could be sent to as a referral. Of course, that is case specific. For this case, it was, excuse me, getting ahead of myself. It was warranted as an administrative investigation to further assess, why the officers deactivated their lights and sirens prior to arriving and causing that accident. So then the case was then assigned to a sworn investigator. And to talk briefly about that, there is an option within the complaint form whether or not a complainant would like a sworn or civilian investigator. We do consider that, and we try to assign those cases based on that preference listed in the complaint form. So the investigator did a complainant statement. There was a witness statement, a focus officer statement, where they are then bringing in the focus officers, which in this case was Officer 1 and Officer 2 involved in that primary squad, and provided interviews as to what happened. So that administrative investigation was completed, and then it was forwarded to panel. Panel found merit on the 3 different allegations, which were vehicle seatbelts, normal and emergency vehicle operation, and a second policy violation that is also within the normal and emergency vehicle operation. Officers were then, the panel recommendations were then forwarded to the front office, so the chief. Minneapolis Police Department then suspended the officers. One officer was suspended for 20 hours, while the second received a suspension of 10 hours. So again, I just want to reference that OPCR has a direct involvement up until a case is sent to panel. Panel has their own independent recommendation, and we provide that data and those administrative reports to them, and they provide their own independent recommendation, which is then sent to the chief, of course. I know that was a lot of information. I'm open to questions if there are any, but I thought it was important to also give an example of what we would, of the amount of research and investigation typically for an administrative case.
Sure. Well, thanks for walking us through that example. We really appreciate it. Could you reiterate? I know you mentioned it a couple of times, but what was the case number assigned to this one?
Absolutely. OPCR-21-02.
Okay, thanks. And I think there was going to be a link for that forthcoming, right?
Yes, it should be. If they haven't already, then I will put it in there as soon as I find it.
Okay, thank you.
Carolina,
Commissioner-
Commissioner Sparks, just a quick note. I did put what I thought was the link in the chat, but that is not the correct link. So I just wanted to clarify that so it doesn't confuse people.
Thank you. Yeah, I looked at that and it looks like it goes up to a certain point and then not so much. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. Okay, Commissioner Pinow.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Sparks. Ms. Amini, I really appreciate you taking the time to go through that in detail. I think it's safe to say in the 2+ years that I've been on this commission, this is by far the most in-depth and detailed walkthrough of a case that we've had. And normally, I'm one of those people who's just trying to ask for more information and try to get an understanding of what's going on. And it's very clear through this change in the process that has been well received, and I really appreciate it. It is, even without being able to have the report, you walked us through a process that I think is still new for a lot of commissioners, and we're able to wrap our minds around it. And for that, thank you. I do have 2 questions, and I think this kind of gets at the crux of one of those things that we're all still really interested in learning about, and it's in regards to the panel. First off, panel standards. When a panel hears a case like this through an administrative investigation, what are the standards by which a panel takes in this information, and most importantly, the standards by which they apply a recommendation on how to appropriately respond to the merits that they find in the accusations?
Sure. Well, the panel for each case involves 2 civilian individuals and then 2 sworn officers, usually lieutenant or higher. So the 4 usually, well, at least now, they are meeting through teams. Mm-hmm. They are handed all of this information beforehand. They see everything in regards to the VisiNet reports, the PIMS reports. They review the body-worn camera. They also have the administrative reports in front of them. They all sit, review, and then they then go through each alleged allegation and verify whether or not if it has merit or not merit, no merit. So because it is, their standard is more likely than not, did this incident occur? And did these policy violations did in fact occur during the incident? So that is, I guess, to answer your question, that is their standard. More likely than not, did these allegations actually occur?
Okay.
We do have a like a pre-filled form that they are then able to discuss their understanding of the case and what they feel, how they came to their decision as to something having merit or no merit. They are given that opportunity to provide that information. We and what I mean by we, OPCR and the internal affairs investigator, we are not present in the room.
Mhm.
We do not provide anything verbally. We do not provide any individual interpretation, and we do not provide our own opinion of this case other than what is presented through the administrative review.
Okay. Just and to get very nitpicky about the portion I'm particularly interested in, you said that they came to a decision of recommending 20-day suspension, 10-day suspension, respectively, for each of these officers. Did they pick those numbers out of thin air? Was it based off of what sort of standard did they choose those numbers to be the appropriate recommendation? That's the type of
Oh,
standard
sure.
that I'm
I
really
see what
curious.
you mean. The review panel does not provide those recommendations. It is the recommendations from the chief, or the
And
decision,
where
excuse me, from the chief.
and the chief, so the panel just says there's merit to this case. We've decided that these have merit, and they don't give any recommendation on how the chief should respond. The chief has unilateral decision making on,
Yes.
and the chief's standards, where are they coming from? Does the chief pull that 20-day suspension and the 10-day suspension out of thin air, or is that coming from somewhere?
That is an excellent question. I'm not entirely sure of what that answer would be. That is a great question to ask the front office on where they would base those decisions. Again, OPCR is not directly involved in that decision making, so I don't want to answer on behalf of MPD.
Okay. And I just, again, this may sound repetitive. I just want to make sure it's clear because I know there are new people participating. The Office of Police Conduct Review, from what you're saying, is able to review a case through this process, determine whether or not that has merit, inform the police chief that a certain allegation has merit, and then it's the final decision, the standards by which the decision you are unaware of is left to the police chief and that office.
The OPCR reviews the complaints, yes. We are able to provide and have these cases go through the administrative process. We provide those cases to the review panel. The review panel decides whether or not something has merit or no merit, and then it is then provided to the front office.
Thank you for the clarification on that. Yeah, it's one of those things, and I guess I've taken up a lot of time already. I will, I guess, just put the question out there. Is this 20-day suspension and 10-day suspension respectively comparable to similar types of infractions that also received merit from the panel? Or do you know? And how do you know?
There is a trend. There are there is precedence for the amount of hours of suspensions or different types of discipline actions that has precedent to similar cases. Yes.
Okay.
Again, where that standard comes from, or where the chief or the front office has in terms of where they get the 10 to 20 hours, I cannot with certain. That's a question for MPD.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, walking me through the questions that I have.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Sylvester, I see your hand is up.
Hey, thank you so much. Ms. Amini, thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for being a public servant. I really appreciate that. That's a big deal. Just two super basic questions about this case. Number one, was the lights and sirens activated on the squad car when they entered the intersection, when they disobeyed the stop sign?
No.
Okay. Sorry about that. So the lights and sirens, they turned off the lights and sirens before they entered the intersection?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Did the other vehicle have a stop sign, or was that a clear intersection for them?
They did not have a stop sign, no. The only person who had the stop sign was the police squad.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Commissioner McGuire, I see your hand is up.
Thanks. Thank you so much. I had one more process question. After your office has finished kind of their review and their investigation has been passed off, would you ever be called back in by the chief's office, or if it were to go to arbitration for any reason, does your office ever touch these investigations again or get called in for any reason?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Right. The other commissioners, questions, comments, concerns? Commissioner Sylvester, your hand is still up. All right. Well, just Carolina, thanks again for walking us through everything. It sounds like it's a pretty complex process, and echoing Commissioner Pino's comments, that was by far the best explanation I've ever heard of how it all works. So thanks again. I think, can we look forward to more in future meetings, more presentations like this, and more case summaries? Is that going to be coming soon? I think that's something we've been hoping for.
Yes, there should be at the very least 5, and then as we kind of have the time to write more of these case summaries, we will upload them as we finish them. But it should be a total of 60 cases for this year.
Great, thank you. Okay. So if there are no other questions, comments, or discussion items on this update, we're going to move on to the next one. Thanks again. Okay, our next item of business is discussion, I guess we kind of wanted to have about the city attorney's office and their outside counsel process. I think specifically this was in reference to Jones Day helping with police case review. We did get an update from OPCR just very shortly before our meeting tonight, confirming that Jones Day is actively participating in case review. It's just kind of a strange thing because it hasn't come up in a really public way, and I know that Chair Sarah was kind of concerned about it. So my understanding from the update that we received from the Civil Rights Department interim director was that Jones Day is providing investigative support. They do investigate complaints along with the other staff of the OPCR, but they sort of partner with existing investigators. They're not handling the complaints like individually. They're sort of being worked in a hybrid fashion, so they're helping, in other words. And there were no cases being solely handled by Jones Day. It's just kind of one of those strange things as we learn a little bit more about Jones Day involvement and the contract with the city of Minneapolis. Their involvement seems to be a little bit far-reaching, one could say. So I guess I'll start by opening up the floor. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything they want to bring up? I think on the agenda there was some supporting information for that.
Vice Commissioner Sparks, I apologize. The link in the agenda is not working for me. If anyone else, is anyone else able to open it?
I can try and put it in the chat here.
You know, I think because I opened it separately in Google Docs, I broke the link somehow. So, but.
Commissioner Sparks, I can make an attempt to share that document.
I see the link and I'm able to open it. Sorry.
Okay.
Commissioner Sparks, if I might, while we're reading through this, I mean,
yeah, please.
Is there any reason to believe that there's, the outside consultation is anything other than just a crutch for capacity, trying to like address a capacity issue within the city? I mean, that's what it reads like to me.
Yeah, that's one of many possible interpretations. And I think that would be the balcony approach, right? That they are having staffing issues and the backlog, and they needed help going through it. I think that one possible interpretation is that it was a strange way to get help, being that it was lumped into general legal services for the city.
Okay. And so the concern is the broadness of the consultation. They're not being consulted about a specific case that's particularly complex or something that, will take up a lot of like city staff time, but they're generally becoming an advisor in these legal services in general. That correct what you're saying?
I think so. And then sometimes you hear concerns about the expense too. It's I believe $1 million contract. I'm not sure exactly what the cost is related to assisting with OPCR investigations. But one has to wonder, right, if that's a cost-effective way to do it. Jones Day is a very expensive law firm. Maybe there's somebody else that we could have partnered with to help resolve if it's a short-term staffing issue. It makes you wonder.
It would be interesting to do a cost-benefit analysis of this, but I mean, would there be a possibility that this is through, I mean, we could do a cost benefit analysis of this. I just don't know to what end that would, be possible to, get that financial data of the legal services rendered through this firm, versus, quantifying city staff hours at city staff rates to do the same job. That's just a back of the napkin idea. But I think to that end, thinking about the scope of our responsibilities as this commission, is this tertiary at best to our scope of responsibilities, I'm just externalizing that, and I know this is like the second time we've brought this up because I ended up being the pro temp chair at our last meeting, and I know we tabled this for Chair Sarah to kind of have her input on this, and unfortunately she's not here tonight, so this is kind of what's just been ruminating on my mind regarding this.
Right. Yeah, we might end up tabling it again. I think this is something that she's expressed a keen interest in. And she's a good perspective. I can probably talk about it at length. Anybody else have any comments, questions, anything they want to share in regard to Commissioner McGuire?
Thank you. I have just one comment in thinking of how it could intersect with our work, and I still don't know if it's the most direct relation, but if Jones Day is participating in investigative work, that means they are handling maybe to some extent city data or important data. So it would just be like reassurances that that remains protected or stored the correct way, that it would be accessible to the city of Minneapolis later. I think there could be some information concerns, I suppose. But I mean, I would like to hear Chair Sarah's at some point thoughts on it, because I know she's spent a lot of time looking into this.
Yeah, I would too, and that's a good point. I know that she was able to get a copy of the agreement between Jones Day and the city. I don't have it handy, and I haven't studied it closely enough to know if there's. I mean, I assume that there's something in there for correct handling of data and privileged data, but it makes you wonder too. I mean, Jones Day provides a plethora of services to public and private entities. How are we to know that data from their work in OPCR in Minneapolis doesn't wind up in one of those other projects, or in a pitch meeting or in a spreadsheet somewhere that they use for one of those other services that they provide, or that they a study that they do in the future, that kind of thing. And it does make you concerned what they might do with our data. All right. Lisa, I think, could we table this one for the next meeting? Just keep it on the agenda for next time.
Certainly.
Thank you. Okay. If there's nothing else on, sounds like there's nothing else on the outside counsel process, so we can move on to Office of Internal Auditor. Okay, so we have, pull up my notes on this one here. So there's a bunch of attachments under this one too, but I think the gist of it is that with the city charter amendment passing, the city council is supposed to be setting up an independent auditor office. That independent auditor, in theory, is supposed to enjoy a pretty broad jurisdiction over boards, committees, city staff, all kinds of things. They're supposed to have unrestricted access to records, properties, and operations. All kinds of roadblocks that we run into here. In theory, that Office of the Auditor, once it's created and staffed and so forth, may not run into. Chair Sarah and I authored an op-ed to the Star Tribune. Basically, in a nutshell, it expresses that we think it would be a good idea for PCOC to be moved under the Office of the Auditor. In theory, if we're moved under that office, we may not hit the same roadblocks that we keep running into in terms of access to data, operations, and so forth, everything having to be public and so forth. This commission might be able to do what it's been tasked with more effectively and be able to dive deeper, dig deeper without those sorts of constraints. So we'll open that up for discussion if anybody would like to talk about it.
If you don't mind, sorry, I should raise my hand first.
Sure. Whatever. There's only a few of us here.
I know one of the, sometimes frustrating, but important aspects of our charter is that we have, I'm sorry, I'm getting really distracted by screen sharing of my own face and the lag of that. So thank you. One of the great things about our commission's charter as it is that we're publicly facing, right? And sometimes that's a barrier to us getting the information that we need, but that's kind of the deal that we make, so to speak. And we've talked about how we weigh the balance of those two things, public facing versus access to data. If we're under an independent auditor, would we necessarily be as publicly facing, or do you know the answer to that?
I don't think that we know. I think that my assumption, what I hope to be the case, is that we could remain as public facing. I think that Chair Sarah has brought up the idea several times that we could have the same meetings, and then she believes under the current rules now we could have the same meetings and have them be open except for closed parts, maybe at the end where we would discuss privileged data, stuff that's not supposed to be public. I know that the city attorney's office has expressed a different opinion, and that's been the prevailing opinion. But it's possible that we would have more latitude to do that if we were moved under the audit office.
Okay.
Speculative, of course.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions, comments, opinions, philosophical inquiries? No? All right. Lisa, could we table that one as well for our next meeting? I'm sure that's something that Chair Sarah would like to have a crack at.
Certainly.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to our next item. Okay, so we have the draft 2022 calendar, our meeting calendar. We pretty much have all the dates figured out except for November 2022. That meeting date happens to fall on an election day, so we'll have to select a different date. The calendar that has already been prepared suggests Tuesday, November 5th as the starting point for that meeting instead of Tuesday, November 8th, which is, again, an election day. We always strive to have the second Tuesday of the month be our regular meeting, but in this case, we've got an item that interferes. Personally, I think that that's a fine suggestion, and I'd be fine taking it. I can open it up for discussion, or we can just we can move on to a vote if everybody thinks that's okay.
I'm fine with that.
All right. Well, I will. I guess I'll make a motion. I will make a motion to update the 2022 meeting calendar for the November meeting to be Tuesday, November 15th. Could I have a second for that, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sylvester. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner McGuire,
Aye.
Commissioner Pino,
Aye.
Commissioner Sylvester,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sparks.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we need I suppose we need a second vote to vote for the full calendar then, as amended?
We could do that just to be on the safe side.
All right, let's be on the safe side. All right, I'll make a motion to approve the amended 2022 calendar.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sylvester. I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner McGuire,
Aye.
Commissioner Pino,
Aye.
Commissioner Sylvester,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sparks.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes.
All right, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is a staff update on commission appointments. As I think we know that we have a few open seats and then a few commissioners whose commission has expired but have graciously decided to stay on for the time being. We were hoping somebody from city staff will be able to give us an update on upcoming commission appointments, reappointments, interviews, all that kind of thing. And I see that Carolina Amini has made herself visible. Did you have an update for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So we have a new review process for managing appointments to the boards and commissions. The goal is to provide a consistent approach across the groups. So we have been working, OPCR has been working with City Equity staff to try and establish a criteria for evaluation of applicants, and also to provide an increased level of transparency through the expanded opportunities. When the requirement for the applications of not having a pending complaint was removed, it is the intention to conduct a condensed outreach program, reopen the application period, and then complete that process by March's meeting. However, the guidance from the city clerk's office has been that unless there is an immediate impact to quorum or the ability of the group to conduct its business, the expectation is that we conduct the appointment process within the 2 applications periods. So currently, we have, through the 2021 PCOC cycle, we have 9 applications. Our proposed next steps, and this is approximate timeline that we would keep to keep us in line with the clerk's application windows, is that by Tuesday, March 8th, which is that next PCOC meeting, there will be a presentation of outreach and engagement strategy for the upcoming open appointment cycle. We are still confirming the date, but approximately by March 14th, the applications portal will be open. And again, we still have to confirm, but we are anticipating that Thursday, March 31st, the applications portal will close. And then from March 28th to April 1st, the application review should be completed. Candidates will be notified of upcoming interviews. And then a formal interview schedule will be sent to the mayor and council offices between April 4th to April 8th. The candidate interviews are expected to be held, and then the final slate of candidates is identified. And then around the time of April 11th, they will request for council action and is submitted to the clerk's office. And then towards the end of April, they will have a public health and safety committee meeting. There'll be April 28th, there will be a Minneapolis City Council meeting. Candidates will receive their final decision around the end of April. And then Tuesday, May 10th, which will be that monthly PCOC meeting, there will be an onboarding and annual commissioner training will be conducted at that point.
Thank you. That's a really good update. We appreciate you laying that out for us. I did have a question off the bat. I think that we have heard from some members of the public and from our current couple of commissioners who have sought reappointment. I believe that they've submitted their applications already. Is that something that these folks would have to do again in March?
Well, those were the 9 applications that I had mentioned through that last 2021 cycle. So there were 9 in total, 2 of which are current members. It is my understanding that they don't have to reapply. I will have to check and verify. I can get back to you if that is the case. But it's my assumption that those applications are already submitted and will be reviewed along with any new applications that we get in the future.
Okay. Great, thank you. Anybody on the commission have any questions, comments for Carolina Amini about this?
I have none, but just thank you for the update.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, next item is the chair/vice chair report. I don't really have much of an update on anything specific to the chair or vice chair. We did make that, Chair Sarah and I authored that op-ed statement. There's a link in the meeting agenda, and I believe that went to the Star Tribune. That was about the auditor's office. Other than that, I don't personally think I have any other updates to provide. All right, I'll move to the next item, which is the Audit Subcommittee report. So the last Audit Subcommittee meeting that we had was January 24th. I don't have a lot of updates from that one either. It was kind of a quick meeting. We got a real nice update from Chris Band on the no-knock warrant study, and he was able to kind of walk us through some of the data that he'd been gathering and some of the preliminary findings. I think there were 1 or 2 updates we were hoping for from city staff, who unfortunately were not able to attend, and then I think we just ended up tabling everything for the next meeting. Commissioner Pinow, I see you have your hand up.
I do. Just wanted to say thank you for holding the meeting while I was absent from that, and I was happy to see the draft report that you mentioned come out in that meeting. Excited to dive into it in our next audit subcommittee.
Thank you, and I knew you would be. It's a really nice report, so thanks again to Chris Band for putting that together for us and walking us through it. Really impressive, and really good partnership from you on that, so thank you again.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next, it looks like we're going to move on to the public comment section. Oh, actually, on the audit subcommittee report, I would be remiss if I didn't say and mention with Commissioner Pinow that no-knock study that we've been working on and trying to spin up is probably going to take on a new level of urgency and importance with recent events.
Yeah, I think that's obvious, and thank you for voicing that.
All right, we'll move on to the public comment section of our meeting. Members of the public can have their chance to speak. I will open the floor and invite comments from the community. We will limit the public comment period to no more than 2 minutes per speaker. So with that, are there any community members on the line who wish to address the commission? And I believe that you have to press *6 to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak.
Hello, this is Dave Bicking. There is so much more to comment on this meeting than I can possibly do in 2 minutes. Some just jaw-dropping items. First of all, I appreciate that at least there was a slight mention at the end of the meeting that the Minneapolis police have killed somebody again in less than a week ago. And it is related to no-knock warrants, caused by a no-knock warrant, which your commission took up beginning in April of last year. And you had an excellent presentation from No Knock, Minnesota, and referred that to committee. And because of a variety of issues, that has languished, which is most unfortunate. Some of it's a capacity issue, and of course some of that's on the city for not appointing people, and we'll get to that later. But some of it is a lack of the city cooperation in getting data. Some of it seemed to be an issue of, well, we don't know if that's really in your wheelhouse, and the city attorney objecting to things. So, but all in all, your efforts on that, which were really started out with great intentions, your efforts on that were frustrated. And, you know, that is directly related to this death and the results that that's going to have in our community going forward for a long time. I looked back through the minutes. It was in April that you had that presentation in the audit committee. In April, it was continued to May. In May, it was continued to June, but there were a couple of links. In June, it was postponed to July. You directed the staff to draft something for you for the July meeting, but in July, it was postponed again. In August, it was postponed to September, and so on and so on. Finally, in the January meeting, you got a draft exploratory data report from the city, but because of your lack of capacity and lack of city cooperation, that's been postponed to your February 28th audit subcommittee meeting, which is, needless to say, much too late. So this is a little bit on the PCOC, though all in all, I'll give you credit for having initiated this and tried, whereas the city, the civil rights staff are absolutely responsible for frustrating your work once again in a way that has led to an unjustified killing. I want to quickly say on other topics, on Jones Day, the city attorney's office, Jones Day or not, shouldn't have any involvement in investigating cases. That is the exact opposite of having a firewall between, complaint process and the city attorney's office, which prosecutes the misdemeanors that are often go along with the police interaction. So that's terrible. Quickly too, on the appointments, this is now absolutely outrageous. You're going to go 4 months without new members of your committee. You're being frustrated. This is a purposeful thing by the city. The people who applied by October 22nd have not yet received any mention that it's now going to be another 2 or 3 months before any action is taken on their appointments. It is going to be literally 6 months between the closing of the applications and the consideration or interviews for those appointments. I just hope that maybe finally the postponements and delay will end so that you have new members in May. But this is something I'm going to take to the city council. I'll let people know. Absolutely outrageous disappointment process. There was no excuse. On the case selection thing, I guess I should leave that. I'm over my 2 minutes. I know I am, but I would have several comments on that. Just want to make a quick note. It was 20 hours and 10 hours of suspension, not 20 days or 10 days. I can understand the mistake because It's hard to believe it would be only that small a suspension, the amount of discipline. I'm familiar with that case. It was in the news. You could look it up. But, you know, running a red light without lights and sirens, damaging, significant damage to 2 vehicles, injuring 3 people, and, you know, 2 days and 1 day of lost pay for that. This is the point that we and CUAPB have been trying to make for years and years and years. That the discipline is absolutely nothing compared to what it needs to be. And again, my apologies for running on, but the city's actions are what leads to people being killed, and this is extremely serious. I'm glad you guys are trying to do your work. I wish you had a better opportunity to do so. Thank you.
It's all right. Thanks, Dave. And I know I let you go on a little long there. We appreciate the comments. Is anybody else from the community who are on the line like to speak? Just a reminder, it's *6 to unmute yourself. And if you could state your name for the record. Right, I'm not hearing any other.
Hello, this is Ben Henry. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
Hi, this is Ben Henry, reporter with KSTP. This question isn't for a specific commissioner, but to the commission as a whole. And if you do respond, I'll ask that you please state your your name and title with the commission, please. Can you just share what kind of work is being done to address the department's policy on no-knock warrants, please?
Commissioner Pinow, are you in a good position to give an overview of the audit subcommittee's work on that topic?
Yeah, sure. I just want to make sure that I'm hearing the question correctly. You're saying our work on the subject, sir? Or are you
Yes,
saying the
hear me.
department's work, as in like the police departments?
What kind of work the PCOC is doing to address the department's policy on no-knock warrants?
Okay. Yeah, so hold on, let me just turn on my camera here. As was mentioned earlier in the meeting, we had a presentation by a third-party organization last year that brought the current status from their perspective of no-knock warrants or unannounced entry warrants to our attention. This commission felt that that presentation was compelling enough to begin our own exploratory audit on the subject. That was referred to the audit subcommittee, of which I am the chair. We ended up beginning that audit process by first asking the question, are there meaningful differences in both practices as well as outcomes between announced and unannounced entry warrants? And we ended up defining that on a myriad of factors, of which are in our audit subcommittee minutes, and I can link those to you later if you'd like. And we're just starting now to get summary data back. That was the report that Commissioner Sparks and I referenced earlier in this meeting. And I'll make sure that you can have a link to that. That is in the most recent audit subcommittee. And right now, the most up-to-date version of what we're doing is going to be taking a look at that report and see what meaningful differences we can find between announced and unannounced warrants, and then talk to City Council and share that report with the police department, so that way they're aware of those meaningful differences if there are those.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinow. Appreciate it. Are there any other community members on the line who would like to speak. Just another reminder, it's *6 to unmute, and then if you could state your name for the record. Okay, not
This
hearing
is Ben
anyone
Henry
else.
once again. If I can have a
Oh,
this
sure.
is Ben Henry again. If I can have a follow-up since no one else is chiming in. Of course, it's been just under a week since the shooting death of Amir Locke. Has there been any discussions since that, to speed up that process, as you mentioned, or has anything changed essentially this week?
I'd be happy to answer that again, Commissioner Sparks, if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
I will say, Mr. Henry, I can't speak for the entire commission, but I will say personally, when I found out about the death of Amir Locke, I immediately saw how this would change the tone of our investigation, and I, reference Commissioner Sparks and I conversation about this just before we had public comment, that this is of a particular sensitivity to our subcommittee. We want to make sure that we are finding an appropriate balance between expediency, making sure that we have information coming out to the public in a timely manner, but also accuracy, and making sure that we're providing a reliable and legitimate result of our work, and finding the appropriate balance between that is one of the main focuses that we have. We're definitely not going to rush information and risk it being incorrect, because we know that the accuracy of that information is really important to the public and their understanding of no-knock warrants and the differences between that and announced warrants.
Thank you
for that.
Pina.
Is there any access to this video? I mean, are you guys currently doing a Zoom interview? Because again, I'm on the phone. Is there a Zoom happening right now that just the public's not getting access to?
So I believe the way it works is that the public has to dial in via phone, and then the commission and city staff are on Zoom, and then the Zoom is made available later via the city's YouTube channel for review.
Copy that. Thank you.
Commissioner Sylvester, I see you have your hand up, and I think you had it up earlier, and I didn't notice. So my apologies for that.
Not a problem. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Bicking again for his comments. I always learn a little bit from Mr. Bicking once a month. And if I'm ever as engaged as Mr. Bicking is in my life, I think I will be successful. So I deeply appreciate Mr. Bicking. And Mr. Henry, please, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for taking an interest in this, and please feel free to come back in the future. We appreciate your work. And please feel free to come back.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Sylvester. Anybody else who would like to speak? It's *6 to unmute, and if you could state your name for the record. Commissioner Sylvester, is your hand up? Is that new, or is that from before? Oh, okay, thanks. All right, I'm not hearing anybody else, so I'll just thank all of our public speakers for their comments tonight. We do appreciate the comments and the participation and the questions, so thank you so much. Okay, with that, it looks like we have concluded all items on our agenda for this meeting. I'll see everyone back here next month for the March 8th, 2022 regular meeting. It looks like we have no further business before us, and without objection, I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.